guys, welcome to another Rushed Rush through the weekly rushes. Gosh, some days that is so difficult to say. And I've got a bottle of Barocca. Yeah, fizziness in a bottle. Oh, love it. This is your one-stop shop for all the latest movie and streaming news. So what have we got for you this week? So first up, I don't know if you're aware, but Evan Rachel Wood, the actress from Westworld, is suing Marilyn Manson, who she was in a previous relationship with, for abusive behaviour, mind control and all sorts of coercive control. Marilyn Manson, who's the odd-looking, satanic, dark-eyed, pale-skinned, vampiric sort of character, that's his image, that's what he is returning the lawsuit against Evan Rachel Wood and Evan Rachel Wood's female partner. The lawsuit from Marilyn Manson says this action arises from the wrongful and illegal acts done in furthering a conspiracy by defendant Evan Rachel Wood. And Marilyn Manson claims that he's had his music, TV and film career totally hampered and derailed by Evan Rachel Wood's claim. He also alleges that the duo hacked into his computer system and created a fictitious email account to manufacture purported evidence that Warner was emailing illicit pornography. These are big claims, and they're very specific claims too. He also claims that they impersonated an FBI agent who then distributed a fictitious letter to create the appearance that Warner's alleged victims and their families were in danger. Now, if these are true, this promises to stack up as one of the most sensational court controversies, almost since Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. But this is a strong comeback. Interesting though, he might be coming back with these technicalities. It doesn't necessarily mean that Evan Rachel Wood is inaccurate in her accusations of abuse, but it's becoming a murky, it's making for a pretty contentious and probably quite vicious lawsuit versus lawsuit, counter lawsuit and all that kind of stuff. Sticking with Evan Rachel Wood though, she's curiously been cast in the new Daniel Radcliffe film, which I've talked about a lot here, which is called Weird Al. We saw Daniel Radcliffe last week looking somewhat like Brian May from Queen with his wig on. It's the film of the sort of caricaturist Weird Al Yankovic, who, he did spin-offs of Beat It by Michael Jackson, Eat It. He did Like a Surgeon, Madonna's Like a Virgin. He was a caricaturist, he was a piss taker. Well, in the film, obviously someone needs to play Madonna, and Evan Rachel Wood has been cast to play Madonna. Intriguing choice. Do you think she was possibly the best? Who's a Phoebe Waller-Bridges fan? Or more specifically, who's a Killing Eve fan? We were huge fans of season 1. We kind of ground to a halt though once Sandra Oh's character kind of almost became kind of colleagues and friends with Jodie Comer's character. But Phoebe Waller-Bridges, she's struck an enormously lucrative deal with Amazon Prime. She recently walked off or left a production with Daniel Glover, in which she was playing one half of the Mr. and Mrs. Smith remake of the Brad Pitt Angelina Jolie film. They claim there were creative differences. More recently, she did the script work on No Time to Die. She's she's a co-star in the 5th Indiana Jones film. So she's incredibly capable in front and behind the camera, obviously the creator of Killing Eve. But she's in the process of shooting a new, or is going to shoot later this year, a new comedy, we presume, comedy drama. So we're going to see a lot more from Phoebe Waller-Bridges, but that'll be coming to Amazon Prime. There's not much known about what the project is, other than it's going to be shooting later this year. Now, we've just finished the second series of Euphoria, and my God, what an epic emotional roller coaster it was. And such a fabulous all-round cast, Zendaya and all the others. Sadly, it's only ever Zendaya's name that I can ever remember. It's been renewed for season 3. It's got the accolade of being the finale. The final episode of Euphoria season 2 is the second most watched show on the HBO network, certainly HBO Max. It reached 6.6 million viewers, only to be the only program or episode that was ahead of it is Game of Thrones. That shows you how successful and how much Euphoria's cut through, although I think Euphoria has cut through much more in the American market than it has necessarily over here. But there have been allegations from background actors and support staff that there was a toxic environment on set, toxic and unsafe environment on set. This is what the background actors complained about to one of the unions, that the production failed to provide them with meals on time and refused to let people use the bathroom. There was also the suggestion that they had to be on set for ludicrously long hours. I mean, that is part of the whole shooting process. And HBO have responded saying this: the well-being of cast and crew on our productions is a top priority, no surprise. Production was in full compliance with all guidelines, especially in COVID. We maintain an open line of communication with all the guilds, unions. There were never any formal inquiries raised. So the suggestion being that on set and during production, no one raised these issues. So HBO's pushing back and saying it's a bit curious that they're raising them after the event. But, you know, it's a tricky line, that, because so many productions I've worked on, where the hours run way beyond a sort of standard working day. There is also the fact that HBO say so many of the shooting days, and if you watch the show, happened at night. So antisocial hours is a big part of filming. And also there's that great old adage on any film set, which is hurry up and wait. You know, 85 to 95% of being on a film set is waiting, especially if you're background actors, and 5% is action. Going back to the theme of, or some of the cast of Killing Eve, Sandra Oh, the star of Killing Eve and Grey's Anatomy, which I've never seen. Can you tell me, is it worth checking it out? She's to star in a brand new horror based around a malevolent mother. And, you know, there's a great tradition of horror films that revolve around mothers. There's Darren Aronofsky's Mother, there's Boon Joon-ho's Mother, and there, of course, is Mama, the horror film. She's going to be starring in a Korean-American horror film called Uma, and it pivots around her receiving her ashes of her mother sent to her home. And this is the blurb. The character played by Sandra Oh is Amanda, who's a mother living a tech-light life with her daughter on an American farm. So she's a little bit isolated already. There's always that theme, isn't there, of being in a sort of, you know, farmyard, rural environment where you're isolated and on your own, and police cars need to drive up the drive, and usually the policemen get shot on the veranda. You know what I mean? But when her own estranged mother's ashes arrive from Korea, Amanda is haunted by vengeful images of Uma and faces the fear that she might be about to repeat harmful familial cycles with her own daughter. That age-old connection with the mother, you know, the sins of the mother, the evil mother, the horrid mother, then the ghost haunts the house, and then Sandra Oh potentially inflicts the same horror on her daughter. It's always interesting, isn't it, in horror films? They like to park the horror, often in women, often in the maternal character, because I guess the horror of it is that we all like to think that our mothers are the safest place to hide, that they're the safest character in our family. Returning to the theme of Madonna, there's a Madonna biopic, which is, funnily enough, being produced by Madonna herself. You know how I feel about these biopics where the talent's involved. Is it just going to be a hagiography? Is it just going to show her in a great light? Is she going to be wearing just brilliant conical bras? Go and check out her Instagram for some of the most bizarre shots of her showing her buttocks whilst leaning against car handles. Quite something. But anyway, the casting process is underway for whoever's going to play Madonna. And two of the leading contenders are the wonderful Florence Pugh. And if you look at her face, you can kind of see why she could easily sort of play the part. Florence Pugh, who's obviously from Marvel, and she was in Midsommar, and Ozark's Julia Garner, who is brilliant in Ozark. She's an Emmy award winning. But some of the other actresses who are in there too are Alexa Demi, who I thought was an absolute standout performance in Euphoria. Odessa Young's in the frame from The Stand, Emma Laird from Mayor of Kingstown, and singers Sky Ferreira and BB Rexha are in the frame too. But they're really being pushed to the edge with sort of extended choreography scenes, 11-hour sessions, you know, really tough audition sessions. But of course, the most stressful part of it all is you've got Madonna sitting behind a table looking at you. I mean, how stressful could that be? But there is also a challenge for the part from the 13 Reasons Why star Anna Winters, who on her Instagram account has posted an image of her looking remarkably like Madonna and claiming that she should be the actress to play the 1980s superstar. And lots of her supporters and followers and fans on Instagram have said, yes, you've got to get the part. Who do you think would make a great Madonna? Of course, The Power of the Dog, the new Western starring Benedict Cumberbatch, is, you know, being garlanded with awards nominations. I can't remember how many Oscar nominations it's got, BAFTA nominations, SAG nominations, SAG Awards, you name it, Golden Globes. It's won many, and it's directed by Jane Campion. And it's a film with an underlying, brooding, suggested homosexuality beneath it, which is why it's been given the sort of nickname of 2022's Brokeback Mountain. It's not as overt as Brokeback Mountain. Anyway, the actor, this is a real disappointment, the actor Sam Elliott, who you will know as playing the brother to Bradley Cooper's lead character in A Star Is Born, an amazingly strong and powerful performance by Sam Elliott. He's savagely attacked The Power of the Dog for wrecking the American tradition of cowboys. On a podcast, he was chatting about the film. He himself is a cowboy of sorts, and he said this, which is quite, it's quite sort of an angry response to what The Power of the Dog is about. He says, you want to talk about that piece of shit? Describing it as an eviscerating film of the American myth. So he's still stuck in that old tradition, men should be men kind of cowboy films. He said they made it look like it was a film starring the Chippendales, those men in bow ties. I don't quite know what he's talking about there. And he says, what are all these cowboys about? He says they're running around in chaps and no shirts. There's all these allusions to homosexuality throughout the fucking movie. And then there's a latent sense of sort of misogyny when he doesn't even refer to Jane Campion with her name. He just refers to her as this woman. And he says, what the fuck does this woman know? She's a brilliant director, by the way, but what the fuck does this woman from down there know about the cowboy culture? I think that's really disappointing. I think it kind of, I think precisely what you need to do. We've had so many cowboy films that supports the kind of macho image, Clint Eastwood, all that kind of stuff. I think it's really interesting to sort of scratch at the surface of masculinity. And this in no way is as overt as Brokeback Mountain. It's very much implicitly stated. It's very subtle in the way that it's suggested. And I think it should be lauded for the way in which it actually approaches the complications between or beneath being a man in such an overtly male environment. I'm not too sure if any of you have seen or are watching Pam and Tommy, in which there's a talking penis. It's the story of Pamela Anderson and Tommy Lee's sex tape. We watched episode 1. I could have stuck with it a bit longer, but Nadia decided that it wasn't for her. And because she has control of the remote control, we didn't get to carry on watching it. Well, Pamela Anderson, who was described as being very, very unhappy with it, her friend Courtney Love saying it sort of added to the complex trauma of what Pamela Anderson went through with the release of the original sex tape. But she's releasing what she calls the definitive film of her life, a documentary for Netflix. She describes it as my life, 1,000 imperfections, 1,000,000 misperceptions, wicked, wild and lost. Nothing to live up to. I can only surprise you. Not a victim, but a survivor, and alive to tell the real story. It's going to have all sorts of access to Pamela Anderson's journals, all exclusive interviews and clips and footage. Yet another piece of documentary filmmaking, a little bit like the Kanye film, though Kanye wasn't in control of that film. That's also on Netflix. But I think it's kind of fair that Pamela Anderson gets to take control of her own destiny, gets to sort of correct some of the wrongs that she perhaps felt were, in the series of Pam and Tommy. And also, I wasn't feeling just from the first episode, though some say it does. And I'm not too sure whether the implications and impact of the sex tape were really explored in too much detail within the drama. So perhaps this is a real opportunity for Pamela Anderson to do her bit. It also kind of reminded me a little bit of the Britney Spears documentary that went out a year or so ago. I'm really excited about this. Now, I know lots of people are like, no, remakes, why does Hollywood only keep revisiting the same, franchises and territories? And, why is there always reboots and remakes and all that? I agree. But this is one I have been kind of waiting for. There is a rumour that Michael Keaton and Winona Ryder could be back for Beetlejuice, the sequel. Now, this has been suggested by a couple of producers who are wanting to get it off the ground, but they are talking about the possibility of it shooting later this year, which suggests it would be more progressed than they'd have you think. That said, they haven't confirmed whether Tim Burton is attached. So if he's shooting later this year, I wonder if this is one of those sort of, easily mentioned kind of thoughts that has no substance. The rumour is that Brad Pitt's production company, which is called Plan B, is aboard to produce the movie. Michael Keaton is said to be interested after many incarnations of which he wasn't interested. Winona Ryder obviously is looking like she could come back. But interestingly, Alec Baldwin, who was a key part of the cast, won't be coming back, is the suggestion, due to all of the conflab and all of the dramas and litigiousness around the whole Rust shooting. Gina Davis might come back. It was a brilliantly counterintuitive, raucous, Michael Keaton's Beetlejuice character. I just remember when he came on screen, it was like nothing we'd ever seen before. So the opportunity for him to revisit that part, I think, would be really rich. What do you think? Do you think they should leave the original on its own, or do you think it's one of those franchises that has life left in it? And finally, on the topic of remakes, reboots and all that kind of stuff, I personally missed this original film, but White Men Can't Jump is being revisited, but without Woody Harrelson. And there's been a bit of an outcry because rapper Jack Harlow has been cast in the lead role. It was the film that starred Wesley Snipes and Woody Harrelson back in 1992. It revolved around a sort of business idea or a business opportunity around the idea that Woody Harrelson's character couldn't play basketball or something like that. It was a huge sort of success. It's had a bit of a cult following. It's one of those classics. comics that people are very fond of. But online, a number of kind of punters or fans of the original film have said, what's all this about? Why have they cast this rapper, this guy? Why are they revisiting even the whole concept of this film? So some of the comments on Twitter include, Hollywood, seriously, you need new ideas. We already know that Caucasian men are unable to lift themselves vertically off the ground. We know this. Someone else said, why the fuck are they rebooting it? Instant classic, should never be touched. Come up with the new ideas. Not everything has to be a reboot. And there's a very much a sense that this is going to fail even before it's been conceived, in a sense. The very conception and inception of this idea means that it's doomed from the outset. Are you fans of White Men Can't Jump? I'm a huge fan of Woody Harrelson. And that brings us to the movies of the week. Well, there are two obvious movies, both of which we've reviewed on the channel already. The biggest release this week is the Batman movie. You need to have some time for it. It comes in at an epic 2 hours, 57 minutes, I think. So it's nearly 3 hours of epicness. I don't want to give away too much. Go and see it or go and check out our review. There are some very light spoilers. We don't tell you what exactly happens. Suffice it to say, Robert Pattinson is in there, and he's sort of taking on the chops, literally, the jaw, the eyes, and the moodiness of Batman. There's Zoe Kravitz in there playing Catwoman, and of course the villains. Paul Dano is just fascinating as the Riddler. So it's very rich. I think you could have it's totally immersive, and it's quite detective-y, which is quite in keeping with the original comics. So if you fancy epic escape, that's the Batman. Totally on the other side of the spectrum, creatively and filmically, is the other release of the week, which is Ali and Ava, which we've also reviewed. It's a beautiful film made by Cleo Barnard, who also made The Selfish Giant a few years ago, about an Asian man and a white woman in Bradford who become an unlikely pair of, or do they, an unlikely pair of lovers. And it charts the difficulties from within both their cultures of them trying to make this relationship work. It's a very gentle, it's very moving, it's a very sensitive film. It's got a warm heart, and it's got quite a funny heart too. So that's a lovely antidote if superhero stuff isn't your fodder. It's a really British film, but it's made with a real sense of cinema. It's much more than a TV drama. So if you fancy a sort of will they, won't they love story, you've got Ali and Ava. And there you have this week's Rushed Rush through the weekly rushes. I'm really struggling to say it this week. Share your thoughts on the stories that have landed, and have a good week.
For more film and family fun, don't forget to click the subscribe button and make sure to click the bell to never miss an update.